الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Continuing inshallah ta'ala with the book of Akhsar Al-Mokhtasarat, and the last chapter in Kitab al-Bay' وسائر al-Mu'amalat, the last chapter in the book of buying and selling and transactions, is the fasl that he talks about Al-Hibah or gift. After that, inshallah ta'ala, we hope, inshallah, since by the end of the month, we should finish, inshallah, the 1 year, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy and accept and make it blessed, inshallah. I would like to finish Al-Wasaya and Al-Kitab al-Fara'id, which is the inheritance. But it will be not, according to the book, not without too much details, but at least we would finish them, inshallah ta'ala. So we'll take, inshallah ta'ala, tonight Al-Hibah or the gift. So he says, فصل والهبة مستحبة. والهبة مستحبة. Al-Hibah is, this is the ruling of it, that's the hukm of it, which is mustahabba, that means it's recommended. Al-Hibah is one of the contracts or the means of transactions that to deal with at-tabarru'at, or giving something out of one's goodness. It's not buying and selling, it's a gift. So it's something that a person would seek reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by giving someone a gift. And it comes in many different ways. And some of the words where the fuqaha, as it's going to be mentioned, they would give it to specific types of gifts, as it will come, inshallah ta'ala, to the relatives versus to non-relatives, closer to death versus not closer to death. So there's the word atiyah also, which comes into the same meaning as it will come, inshallah. So, but the word that is used here first is al-hibah. And what is the definition of it? Again, what's a gift is when someone would give something without anything in return, and with the conditions that it's going to be mentioned. So it's basically to give something without anything in return, and a person would then seek rewards of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from wahabtu shay'an. That means I gave something. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-wahhab, is the bestower of all things. So it's a aqd, it's a covenant that gives tamlik, makes you own something in one's lifetime. So this is not to be given after one's death. Anything that a person would want to give after he dies from what he owns, it comes under the category of al-wasiyah, the bequest and the will, and that has its rules and conditions. But as we said, al-waqf was a form of a charitable thing, the endowment in one's lifetime. So here also the hibah has to be in one's lifetime. And as the ulama, they say tamlik. So it's tamlikun fil hayati was sihha. Some of them, they would give that definition also to mention that it's while one's lifetime and one's health is there. Because as we will also hear, some of the things that are mentioned in the masail in the matn, the hibah or the gift when a person in his deathbed, is it recognized or not? So that's why when they define al-hibah, they mention that it's tamlik, so it's ownership in one's life, that he gives something for someone else to own it in the lifetime of al-wahib, in the lifetime of the one that is giving the gift, and while he's healthy. And we'll talk about what does it mean to be healthy. بغير عوض, without anything in return. Without anything in return. And the intention is that he wants to benefit the one that he gives the gift. So therefore the conditions or the things that are mentioned there is all to serve these meanings. So why is it mentioned in the mu'amalat and transactions? Because it's it results into ownership of something. And it's aqdun lazim, by the way, as it's also going to be mentioned. I'm going ahead here. We know that some of the uqud are jaiza and some of it is lazima. Jaiza, that means you can break it anytime. Like one of which, like al-ju'ala, for example, we talked about al-ju'ala. But here, al-hiba lazima from the mu'ti, but at a certain point. Once he gives something, he cannot take it back. If he gives something as a gift, he cannot take it back. And the Prophet ﷺ forbade that, and he gave the example of a dog that he would throw up and would eat it back. This is the example of the one that gives a gift and he takes it back. So it's not permissible, except in certain conditions. So let's see the matn here. He says, وَالْهِبَةُ مُسْتَحَبَّةٌ. So the ruling of it that it's mustahabba, it's a recommended act. It's not fard upon the person to give a gift. Tahadu, tahabbu, give gifts, you would love one another. So then it says, وَيَصِحُّ هِبَةُ مُصْحَفٍ. وَيَصِحُّ, that means it's permissible, it's valid, the hiba of a mushaf. Why he mentions the mushaf? Because in the previous chapter, it's not allowed to sell. According to the madhab, it's not permissible to sell a mushaf, but it's okay to give it as a gift. So وَيَصِحُّ هِبَةُ مُصْحَفٍ وَكُلِّ مَا يَصِحُّ بَيْعُهُ, and everything that is valid to sell, as the previous chapter also. So the same thing with the same thing with the waqf. So anything that is valid to be sold, that means has value, you can give it as a gift. So what's haram, it's not permissible to give it as a gift because it's haram. So وَكُلُّ مَا يَصِحُّ بَيْعُهُ. He says وَتَنْعَقِدُ وتنعقد وتنعقد بما يدل عليها عرفا. وتنعقد, that means it becomes, العقد is when something is established, is already, العقد is the covenant, is the contract, and تنعقد is the verb, that means it becomes established and becomes final. بما يدل عليه عرفا, it becomes hiba with whatever is يدل عليه, that it becomes an evident for it. عليها عرفا, عرفا is what's known customarily or by the culture, by the people that it's known among them, that when you do certain things, you're given something as a gift versus selling it to someone, for example. You don't have to say the word that this is a gift. You don't have to. But you can say other things, or you can do certain things that it shows that it's a gift and it's not that you're selling it to someone else. So وَتَنْعَقِدُ بِمَا يَدُلُّ عَلَيْهِ عُرْفًا. So it's more general than to have a specific terminology for it to be as a gift. So this is تنعقد, that means it becomes established that way. وَتَلْزَمُ بِقَبْضٍ بِإِذْنِ وَاهِبٍ. وَتَلْزَمْ. So now تنعقد, that means it becomes hiba if a person would give it according to what the norm of the people they would take as gift. But here تلزم, that means it becomes lazim, that means it becomes binding, means it becomes not permissible for a person to break it. بقبض, once the giver he make the qabd of it. And remember when we talked about al-qabd is to have it in one's possession, to have the to be with his own, in his own way of possessing something, and that is also to be known by the urf. So the qabd does not have one particular way that shows that the person possessed the matter or possessed the item. So if you give someone a car as a gift, if you tell him I'm going to give you a car as a gift, or I gave you a car as a gift, right, and you did not give it to him, you can take it back. It's not good, yes, but it's not yet binding till the car becomes in his possession. And that is also to be referred to the urf. So for example, if you give him the keys and he says, this is your car, I'm giving you this car as a gift, and here are the keys. And where is the car? In your driveway, right? But you gave him the keys, right? That means the car is his, right? So that becomes urfan. This is his car. You cannot take this back. But you can, but it's haram. Meaning, if it's according to the law, you didn't sign the title, for example, things like this. Yeah, you can do these things, but in the Sharia, it's binding. That's it. You give it as a gift. It's not permissible for you to take it back. And when it becomes mandatory is with al-qabd. And whatever the norm of the people will consider qabd. Clear? وَتَلْزَمُ بِقَبْضٍ بِإِذْنِ وَاهِبٍ. So the second thing is with the idhn, with the permission of al-wahib. Who's the wahib? Is the giver. So you have al-hibah is the gift. Al-wahib is the one that gives the gift. And the one that receives it is the one that, al-mawhub lahu, the one that receives the gift. So here, وَتَلْزَمُ بِقَبْضٍ بِإِذْنِ وَاهِبٍ. عليكم السلام عليكم السلام. He says, وَمَنْ أَبْرَأَ غَرِيمَهُ مِنْ دَيْنِهِ بَرِئًا. Again, we're going with the masail here just to perceive it, just to understand it, regardless of the rulings or regardless of the different situations that people face. So that's why if you have any questions at the end, inshallah. So he says, وَمَنْ أَبْرَأَ غَرِيمَهُ مِنْ دَيْنِهِ بَرِئًا وَلَوْ لَمْ يَقْبَلْ. This is another mas'ala that he mentioned it in the context here. Al-gharim is the one that you give money as a loan. So al-ghurama, because they incurred money upon themselves, as if they have a burden of that they gave you money as a loan and now they want their money back. So man abra'a gharimahu, if someone gave someone money as a loan, and abra, that means he set him free. He says, you don't have to pay me back the loan. وَمَنْ أَبْرَأَ غَرِيمَهُ مِنْ دَيْنِهِ أَسْقَطَ دَيْنَهُ. He, again, cancelled out his dayn, wrote it off. And he said to me, called him, listen, I owe you 1,000, I forgive you. I don't want anything from you. مَنْ أَبْرَأَ غَرِيمَهُ مِنْ دَيْنِهِ. How did he do that? According to the norm. Whether he told him directly or send him a message or whatever there is. Bari'a. Bari'a, that means al-gharim, he is free. It's already cancelled, so it's done. وَلَوْ لَمْ يَقْبَلْ. Even if he does not accept. A person might be, have izzah in himself. He doesn't want to, oh no, it's okay, I'll pay it and things like this. But he has no liability on him. Once the person told him that you're free, that means I'm not going to take nothing from you, even if he does not accept it, but he is bari, that means he has no liability on him anymore with the dayn. Why? Because the owner of it, he's the one that has the right whether to continue with asking or to forgive him, for example. So وَمَنْ أَبْرَأَ غَرِيمَهُ بَرِئَ وَلَوْ لَمْ يَقْبَلْ. So and this brings a principle in fiqh. When something, they call it al-isqat, when you forgive something that is your right. Right? This is your right. And you, out of your goodness, not forced or anything, you cancel it, you drop it. Right? You don't have to wait for the acceptance of the other side. It's your right. So no one can say no. No one can force you to refuse, for example. You're doing this as a favor. So no one, the other side, you're doing him a favor, he cannot say no. This is a contract between us. You give me loan and I have to pay it, and he take you to the judge. And people might do these types of things. I'm supposed to pay him this money. It might be to save his honor and dignity, for example. He doesn't want to be looked at as someone that is forgiven for his loan, or he doesn't want him to take it as a favor that he did to him. Maybe later he will do something. So if, for example, just for the sake of argument, if they come in front of the judge and the debtor, he would say, I canceled it. I don't want anything from him. The judge cannot enforce the fact that, no, you have to take the money from him. Al-isqat, if someone drops something that is his right, then there is no conditions for it that it has to be refused or so. So this is... he can set whatever condition he wants. If later on he says, I don't want anything, he has no rights to refuse. No. Because he's one, he wants to do something good. Anyway, so برئ ولو لم يقبل. ويجب تعديل, another thing. ويجب تعديل في عطية وارث بأن يعطي كلا بقدر إرثه. ويجب تعديل. يجب here. So here this is a mandatory thing. It's wajib. It's an obligation. And the word ta'dil is not as the modern language it's used where you can change things. Right? No, ta'dil means from al-adl. You have to make sure that al-adl or justice is observed في عطية وارث, in when you give atiyah. And atiyah is hibah, but they use the word atiyah specifically for the heirs, for people that would inherit from you. So a person giving a gift to his inheritors, he has to be just when he gives them a gift. Al-Hibah or Al-Atiyah is in lifetime, one's lifetime. He gives them the ownership in their lifetime. Because if he gives them something for them to own it after he dies, that's not Hibah. This is worth. Of course, he cannot do that in his lifetime because it can be only in the category of wasiyah. And the wasiyah is not permissible for the warith. La wasiyyata li warith. Those who have their fixed share in the Sharia, it is not permissible for you to write something for them to be in their ownership after you die. Because you have to leave it to the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it in the matters of mirath. But in wasiyah, you can write in the 1/3 up to 1/3 of your wealth after you die that this portion goes to this place, to that individual. But these individuals are not your heirs. It has to be someone else. Because it's not permissible because the heirs, they have their specific shares. So here now it's a hibah, it's a gift in your lifetime, and a person is healthy and everything. And he wants to give some of those who, if he dies now, they will be his inheritors. He has to be just if he give them anything. بأن يعطي كلا بقدر إرثه. This is a mas'ala that the ulama have opinions in. Meaning that each one will be given according to what is his portion of the inheritance if that giver dies. So it's the mas'ala of if someone has boys and girls and he wants to give a gift to the boy. And is it permissible for him to give one child a gift and not the rest of them? No, he has to be just. If you give one, you have to give all of them. But is the justice meaning that you give all of them in the same equal amount of the gift? Or you can give the boys double what the girls get because that's what the mirath of the sons and daughters. This is where at-ta'dil means. And this, of course, it doesn't mean when you give a chocolate or a gift for kids. Kids, you have to be equal, of course. You don't, if you want them to be as the Prophet ﷺ, when Nu'man ibn Bashir came to him and he told him that he discriminates in the gifts that he gives to his children. He wanted the Prophet ﷺ to witness that he wanted to give something to one of his children. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, did you give all of them? He said, no. He said, I don't want to witness for something that is against the deen of Allah, or against the pleasure of Allah. So, هل نحلتهم كلهم? Did you give them all? Right. So that is not to be taken out of context. But if it's something that is, properties and things like this, is it to be given according to the laws of inheritance or to be given equally? This is a very debatable issue. There's no one set, text that says that you can give it this way or that way. So some, as the early generations of Islam, they said, if we agree that if a person dies, it's going to be distributed according to the laws of inheritance. So I agree to that according to the laws of inheritance. And this is, Madhab Ahmad is upon this. You give according to the, but this is, as far as this is the minimum. It doesn't mean that you don't give equal. If you give equal, this is good. It's not like a must. So we're not talking about this is that you have to do it like this. Al-wujub huna is what's the wujub here is that it's not permissible to go less than al-adl. So the minimum requirement is that that you give according to the laws of inheritance. But a higher level than that, if you give all of them equally, inshallah, this is good. This is even better. So this is in the case of, whatever this opinion. Other opinions is they're all equal if a person is in his lifetime. And the little children are not part of that when a person is being kind to them or so. So, وَيَجِبُ تَعْدِيلٌ. So the ta'dil here is the adl, to give it with justice. في عطية وارث, in the atiyah, in the gift that is given to an inheritor, بأن يعطي كلا, so that he would give each one of them بقدر إرثه, according to their irth, according to what they would inherit. فإن فضل سوى برجوع. فإن فضل, that means if he give one and not the others, right? Then he should, because then it becomes not permissible. Then he should return back the matter by returning things to be based on justice. So if he gives some other heirs and he did not give others, then he should then make them equal in the atiyah, in the gift that he gave. So that means it's permissible in that case to break the gift. So as you said, it's aqdun lazim. So if he gives one of his children, for example, a gift, and he did not give the rest, so that's dhulm, that's injustice. So can we then go back to what we mentioned earlier, that al-hibah, it's aqdun lazim bil-qabd, it becomes binding once he gave it to him and the child says, I'm not going to give it because it's was given to me. No. Then he has the right to take it back and to distribute it equally because he gave it in the first place wrongfully. So this is what is meant فَإِنْ فَضَّلَ. If he preferred, if he gave some and not the others, سَوَّى بِرُجُوع, then he would make them equal with a ruju' by taking it back. By the way, the waratha doesn't have to be only the children. If he gives his brothers and sisters, for example, then he would give them in a just way. And the rulings with the fathers and the sons and things is different also as it will come. وَإِن مَاتَ قَبْلَهُ ثَبَتَ تَفْضِيلُهُ وَإِن مَاتَ قَبْلَهُ. If he died before returning back or fixing the situation, then ثَبَتَ تَفْضِيلُهُ. The tafdeel that he did becomes binding because the guy died already. Now, it's a sinful thing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive him. But as far as the transactions and the financial responsibilities, it is not to be cancelled in this case. Whatever he did, then it becomes upon him. And that's why some people, they enter the hellfire by the wasiyah. مَنْ جار إذا جار في الوصية. If a person commit injustice in his wasiyah, wants to deprive someone, wants to do this can be a sign of a bad ending of a person. And also the same thing when a person, which is a subject, inshallah ta'ala, we'll talk about the wasiyah, person lives like in a place like in the West, and you know that for sure that if a person dies and no one knows when he's going to die, that the money might be lost, or people might not get their inheritance in the right way. So that means the wasiyah becomes obligatory upon him to make sure that it's going to be distributed in the right way. So وَإِن مَاتَ قَبْلَهُ ثَبَتَ تَفْضِيلُهُ. ويحرم, he says, ويحرم على واهب أن يرجع في هبته بعد قبض وكره قبله. Then the mas'ala of يحرم, that means it's haram. على واهب, upon a wahib, the one that gives the gift. أن يرجع, that he takes back. في هبته, that he takes his gift back. بعد قبض, after he gave it and it becomes in the possession of الموهوب له, after it's been in the possession of the one that he gives the gift to. وَكُرِهَ قَبْلَهُ. So this is the ruling, the hukm is it's haram after the qabd. Before the qabd, it's makruh. Before the qabd, it's only disliked. Makruh if it's before the qabd. And it's makruh because it's going to bring, might bring issues and hatreds and so on, but it's not haram. So if he says to someone, I'll give you a car as a gift, and then he takes his word back, it's not binding, it's not liked, it's disliked, but it's not haram. So it's haram to take. So the mas'ala here, it's haram to take the gift after you give it to someone. But there's an exception. إِلَّا الْأَبْ, except the father. So if the father gives his son a gift, after 20 years, you can say, give my gift back, if it's still there. The father, أَنْتَ وَمَالُكَ لِأَبِيكَ. Father is different. Your father, you and your wealth is for your father. So if the father decided to take his gift back, whether it's a good thing for the father to do this or not, that's a different situation. That's the father between him and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the father has the right to take his gift back. So, now, إِلَّا الْأَبْ. But then it will be mentioned some of the conditions here. وَلَهُ أَنْ يَتَمَلَّكَ بِقَبْضٍ مع قول أو نية من مال ولده غير سرية ما شاء. So now this is the mas'ala with relationship between the father and his sons or daughter or whatever. So since the father is a special case, so what is the details of that? وَلَهُ, lahu means to him, refers to who? To the father. So for the father, أن يتملك. The father has the right to have ownership. يتملك فعل مضارع from ملك أو ملك يتملك ملك يتملك, that means he becomes the owner. So he has the right to own anything from his son. The father has the right to take from his son بقبض, by either taking it in his possession مع قول with a speech says I'm taking this for myself, or نية, he's taking it with the intention. Because for example, if a father takes the key of his son's car and he goes to drive it, does that mean that he owns it? No, because there's nothing that would show that he's taking it as his ownership. But if he takes the key, he says, listen, I took over your car. Your car is mine now. I took your car. So this is, he said it. Or he did something to show that this is now, it's his car. من مال ولده, from the wealth of his son. There's exception. غير سرية. But without a surriya. Surriya is whether it's his wife or his right hand possessed, of course, he cannot take that. But surriya is what he owns, so he cannot take that. This is not permissible. He says, Masha, whatever he wills, but with some 4 exceptions here. So the father can take ownership of some of the items of his son, but with conditions here. First, ما لم يضره, as long as he does not harm his son. So if the son is harmed, then of course الضرر يزال. The darar is to be removed. So if he takes, the son is, mashallah, is not going to be harmed by this, so he has the right. And all of that because of the hadith of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, أنت ومالك لأبيك, you and your wealth is for your father. So the first condition, ما لم يضره. Number 2, أو ليعطيه لولد آخر. Or if the father would take from one son, he says, this is mine now, and he gives it to another son, then it's not permissible. He can refuse, right? Then he has to figure out how to be righteous to his father because he don't want him to be upset. But as far as the legality of things, the father is not permissible to take it from one son to the other. One son is super rich, and the other one is poor. Can the father take from the one that is rich and he gets in his ownership and he give it to another of his sons? No, it's not permissible. He can give an order to his son, help your brother, and if he refuses and if he has the means, then it's a bad thing because he has to help his brother. But when it comes to the contract, the binding relationship of financial responsibilities, أو ليعطيه لولد آخر أو يكن بمرض موت أحدهما. The other condition is if أو يكن, or it becomes, or they are بمرض موت, in the deathbed, the sickness of death, أحدهما, one of them. So if the father is dying, and مرض الموت has so much different details of rulings and what constitutes it and what's not, they would mention some of it here. So if the father is dying in his deathbed and he wants to have something from his son, give me your land, then no. Why? Because in the marad al-maut, in the death of the deathbed, if he owns it, it's going to be distributed to the inheritors. So as if the son, he gave something that to be given to the heirs, not to his father. So mauti ahadihima, or the son is dying, right? And the father would say to him, give me this or give me that. That's not permissible. Because now he's seems like he's closer to death. So that means the money that he has should be given or should be left to the waratha or to the heirs. So أو يكن بمرض موت أحدهم. That's the third condition. Number 4, أو يكن كافرا والابن مسلما. The father is a disbeliever and the son is a Muslim. Then he has no right to take without permission like that. Yes, the son has to be kind to his father and give him and so on. But as far as the hadith, أنت ومالك لأبيك, we're talking about rights here, that the father owns, but not if they have different religions. So then he says, وليس لولد ولا لورثته مطالبة أبيه بدين ونحوه بل بنفقة واجب. Okay, here وليس لولد, and is not for a walad, and walad is what? The son or daughter, because anything that is born, right? So the walad does not have to be necessarily male in general, unless there is something that would show that there's a sign that this is for one versus the other. So وليس لولد ولا لورثته, ولا لورثته, or the heirs of the person or the individual مطالبة أبيه to whether it's the son or the waratha of the son, the inheritors of the son. It is not for them, it is not permissible, and it is not valid for them. مطالبة أبيه, to ask. طلب is to ask. مطالبة is to ask his father بدين, with a loan. ونحوه, and the like of that. So a son gave his father a loan. Can the son ask for his money back? No. Right? I mean, if he gives it to him, mashallah, if he is, again, with the previous conditions are mentioned, that's different. But you don't ask for your father for a loan that you gave him. And the same thing with the inheritance of the son. So the son gave his father $1,000 as a loan, and the son died. Can the wife of the son ask the father of the son, which is the father of her husband, for the $1,000? No. That's what the mas'ala is. بل بنفقة واجب. بل, that means but rather, this is then exception that is not according to the ruling. نفقة واجب. They have the right to ask for an obligatory nafaqah, for an obligatory spending. So the son is underage, and his financial responsibility is upon the father, and the father is not spending on him. Then he can ask for his, for money, because it's mandatory upon the father to spend upon his son. But that's supposed to stop by the age of puberty, as far as legality is concerned, right? And that's why, the son, if he's 15 years old, the father is not responsible to spend on his son. I mean, of course, it's goodness he gets good deeds, mashallah. He should get him married, yes. He should get him to go for Hajj, right? Things like this. But as far as obligations, then this is, he's a grown-up person. He can, sustain himself by the will of Allah. So, بل بنفقة واجب. But then, the details of that, can a son go to the court and ask, this is something that the ulama, they say it's not permissible. So that's why there's other ways to do it instead of making uquq to the father. Clear? And of course, the subject has details to it, but this is in general. Anything that's not clear in the masail? نعم. السرية is the basically what a person's imam, the slave girls, and so if he has slaves, then it's not permissible for the father to own some of the slaves of his sons. No, because this is something that required, then it would gets into things that is not permissible. No. Same for all children. No. نفقة الواجب. The obligatory expenses that is upon the father to pay for the children. Then they have the right to ask for it. Fathers gifting money to life. If he? Oh. One better than the other? The more share for the son. No, some said actually it's obligatory to be equal, because it's in a lifetime, and the inheritance is after a person dies. But in one's lifetime, they would take it differently, and this can cause enmity and things like this. So that's why it's to be definitely to give the same if he gives, unless there's someone is in need of something and the others do not need it. A child is sick, for example, or someone has been made a mean for him to get something when the others don't. Like, for example, the norm is that the man, when he gets married, he has to have so much financial responsibility, and he doesn't. So he would support his sons and give them more money. He doesn't have to give the same money to the daughters. because the daughters is their husbands will spend on them. So this is not injustice, because this is a special case situation here. Same thing if someone, he say for Hajj is difficult. Everyone they submitted or applied for Hajj, only one got it. And he can give his son the gift to go for Hajj, and he doesn't have to give them all because now he's the one that got it. So maybe later, but even if they were not able later, but he still, he fitted the situation there, so it's okay. So as it's also going to be mentioned. So then he says, وَمِن مَرَضِهِ وَمَن مَرَضُهُ, I'm sorry, وَمَن مَرَضُهُ. Now the situation of al-marad, because this always comes with inheritance and it comes with gifts. So going back to the marad, to the sickness, when is it valid for a person to give gift when he's sick or versus not? So وَمَن مَرَضُهُ, the one that his marad and his sickness. Now غَيْرُ مَخُوفٍ أو غَيْرُ مُخَوِّفٍ. Both are correct. That means al-khawf is the fear, not fearful sickness. That means it's not a sickness that is people might fear that he would die in that sickness. Some things, if it happens to a person, people would fear that this might be it, that he might die as a result of this. They don't know. Everything is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that's why there's some sicknesses which is not fearful ones versus things or sickness that is fearful. So the ulama, they differentiate the rulings here from these two types of sicknesses. So if it's غير مخوف أو غير مخوف, it's not something that people fear for one's life. تصرفه كصحيح. Then تصرف, the sick person in this case, التصرف means what? Buying, selling, making contracts. كصحيح, like a healthy person. There's nothing wrong with that. So someone have a stomach pain. Someone is going to do even a surgery that is not dangerous one. He can still make contracts and sell and buy and so on. But then أو مخوف or أو مخوف, if it's something then that it's fearful. He says here كبرسام. Bersam is a disease that used to be known to them before, that once a person when he's old, he lose it, basically. He gets, as they say here, even get a tumor or something, and he's not able to function anymore. That means that he's going towards the end of his life, and Allah knows best. But this is just an example. Anything, if a person, many sicknesses, for example, cancer in the last stage, something that they would say there's no means that we have for means of cure, and everything is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is marad makhuf. وإسهال متدارك. Someone has diarrhea that is continuous. Someone's health is deteriorating very fast. So something that is well known to the people, that this is well known that this is something or a sickness that people would fear that the person might die in this. وما قال طبيبان مسلمان عدلان عند إشكاله إنه مخوف. Or two Muslim trustworthy doctors upon religion and they're righteous, when it's not clear whether it's the sickness is makhuf or not, whether it's something fearful or not for death, then for these two doctors to witness that it is makhuf, it is mukhawif, that means this is a very dangerous disease. So then the rulings will apply. Okay, so it's usually, if it's not well known and established, then to ask two Muslim just doctors, and just here adlan, that means they fear Allah, they have religion in them. That this is a deathbed disease, or this is, I think when they say it's not curable, that means they don't have the means to it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can cure a person completely and he becomes completely cured. But this is because rulings now will apply. So if that's the case, he says, لا يلزم تبرعه لوارث بشيء. If he is in a state of a marad, makhuf marad that is fearful, means it might be his deathbed, his sickness of death, then لا يلزم تبرعه, his tabarru'. If he makes tabarru' in that state, not what's before, if he makes donation at that state or give a gift while he's in that state, it's not lazim, it's not binding. To a warith, to the warith, the heirs, those would inherit from him if he dies, that is not of anything whatsoever. It does not, is not valid. right? Because he might die in this. لوارث الوارث here he mentioned بشيء ولا بما فوق الثلث لغيره. Other than the warith, other than the inheritors, the heirs, then if he gives more than 1/3 to any other than the inheritors, then it's not permissible because he's only can give them up to 1/3 in his wasiyah. So if he's in his deathbed and he makes wasiyah, he says, I want to give that masjid 10,000. And 10,000 is less than 1/3 of what he owns. So it's okay. That's his wasiyah. ولا بما فوق الثلث. If it wasn't that sickness, he can give all of his wealth. He can do whatever he wants. But now he is about, it looks like he's dying. So whatever he says that he wants to give as ownership is not to be honored, all of it, except in these limitations here. If it's to one of his heirs, none of his heirs is to take anything from his words. He might do this, he can get a lawyer and he can do whatever he wants, but it's haram. Especially if in a Muslim country, if someone does this and it proves that this was in his deathbed, all of that becomes void. And they do that back home very clearly. And they mention, what did he do that? These types of transaction, was he in his deathbed? And many people, for example, they divorce their wives in their deathbed, especially if it's not the mother of the children. So a man is old, the mother of the children died, then after that he married another woman, and his children are grown-ups, and now he's dying, and he's rich, and they don't want this new wife to inherit, so they come to him in his deathbed, and he loves his children, and he's emotional. They say to them, this and that, why don't you divorce her, this and that. So he would divorce her, right? Even though he divorced her, and he was fully understanding what he's doing in his deathbed. And this was his deathbed, the divorce doesn't count. And then he dies, it doesn't count. The judge would treat it as this is his wife. Why? Because he divorced her in the deathbed. And many other financial issues, sometimes they will come, sign this, do this, sell this. All of that is of no validity to it whatsoever if it's proven that this was in his deathbed. Clear? So here it says, so they differentiate between the inheritors, the heirs, versus those who would inherit from him. If they are waratha, if they are to be from his heirs, then nothing is binding not to be executed whatsoever. If it's other than the heirs, then he has up to 1/3 only. If he gives more than 1/3, then what's more than 1/3 is to be returned, not to be fulfilled. But he says it إلا بإجازة الورثة, unless the waratha, the heirs, would approve that he gives more than 1/3. Not that the waratha, the heirs, have the means to approve after his death. No, this is in his lifetime. So if a person dies and in his wasiyah it's more than 1/3, then no, it cannot be given to more than 1/3. But can the heirs would say it's okay, because they can say okay after it's given to them, after it's distributed, at least even in the settings of what they're sitting together. Okay, you get this and you get that with the laws of inheritance. And when they look at the wasiyah of their father, for example, he wrote more than 1/3 to a place or to an individual, then they could say after they get the ownership of their portions, they can say, okay, let's fulfill whatever he wants. So they would take from each one whatever portion to fulfill the will of their father. That's fine. But that means they took from their ownership, because it's not permissible to write in the wasiyah more than 1/3. So this is clear. طيب ومن امتد مرضه بجذام ونحو. Whoever his sickness is extended, امتد, it's taken a long time. بجذام ونحوه. الجذام is, what's the name? Leprosy. One of the forms of leprosy where the parts of one's body falls, where they completely isolate them, and it's so بجذام ونحوه, and the like of this, such a disease, then like that. ولم يقطعه بفراش فكصحيح. ولم يقطعه بفراش. That means that he was not constantly in bed without moving whatsoever, right? So that means his ruling is like a sahih, like a healthy person. So it's not a deathbed disease, it's just a disease that is chronic or permanent disease. So that is not to be treated like as if he's in his deathbed. And some other diseases now that used to be Once a person gets it, that's it. He might be dying very soon. Now he can live for 20 years, 30 years. And this is where the doctors can be referred to. Then he is to be treated as a sahih, someone that is healthy. ويعتبر عند الموت كونه وارثا أو لا ويعتبر عند موته أو يعتبر ويعتبر عند الموت. That means when a person is dying, the one that gave a gift كونه وارثا أو لا. So if a person died, then and someone has been, that person died, has given a gift to a warith. So whether he gave it to a warith, an inheritor or not. Right, so that means if a man before he died, he said to someone, my son will have this, and he is dying, that is not to be fulfilled. But if he says in his deathbed, my neighbor, give this to my neighbor, right? Then to look whether he is warith or not, whether he is inherited. If he's not inherited, then it's okay, up to 1/3, of course. But then he says here, وَيَبْدَأُ بِالْأَوَّلِ فَالْأَوَّلِ بِالْعَطِيَّةِ. That means he would start with the first and then the second with the gift, right? So that means he has to give the one comes in, the one that he said first, then to give it to him first, right? And this is again the difference. Basically, they're talking here about the gifts of the sick person versus his wasi. So this is the gift of the sick person, right? So when a person is sick and is given gifts, and it's not to the inheritors, then it's to be given to the first and then the second and so on. So if it's to be given up to 1/3 only, right? So this is in the case that he made many individual, give this person 1,000, this one 500, this and that, like this, and it exceeded the 1/3, then is to be recalculated of each one according to their portion. If he specified a portion that would fit the 1/3, right? So يبدأ بالأول في الأول بالعطية ولا يصح الرجوع فيه, and it's not permissible to take it back. It's not permissible to take it back. That means this is another thing that makes the atiyah or the gift for a person dying is different than the wasiyah. The wasiyah, a person can reject it, or I'm sorry, the wasiyah, a person can change it. If he's still alive, he can change his will. But the atiyah, if he gives it as a gift while he's dying, it's a gift. So he cannot take it back because it's a gift. He says, وَيُعْتَبَرُ قَبُولُهَا عِنْدَ وُجُودِهَا. And what matters, الاعتبار here is what matters, قبولها عند وجودها. القبول is to accept it عند وجودها, meaning when it's present, when it's there, when it's valid. Because al-wasiyya, it's to be there after a person dies. But if a person is dying and he gives something to someone that is not an inheritor, then it's to be given to him right away. They don't wait till he dies because he gave it in his lifetime. Is it clear? ويثبت الملك فيها من حينها. And the milk, the ownership becomes there in its instant that he gave it. So عند وجودها, that if it's present, then it's to be given because it might be not present. And من حينها, that means from the time that he gave this as a gift, then it's to be given. والوصية بخلاف ذلك كله, and the wasiyah is different than all of this. And also يبدأ بالأول فالأول, which is the first one mentioned. According to this, as I said, you can distribute it accordingly, or actually I refer to another opinion, but here take this back. It's what is meant, and this is what's in the madhab here, is to give to the first, and then the second, and then the third, and if the fourth doesn't have anything, then he doesn't have anything. Right? So he gave first that person, and the second, and the third, and the fourth. But 1/3 would cover the first three. and not the fourth, and the fourth doesn't get anything. So according to what comes first, this is what that is, the ruling is.
And second one is given the gifts, but the original amount is what's taken as well.
Right. So if in his deathbed and he wants to give a gift, then they look at his 1/3. If it's with, because he has to be given that person the gift immediately, because he's still alive. So they can look at his what he's leaving behind as if he died. So if it's more than 1/3, they only give up to 1/3 because he's in his deathbed. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him life afterwards and he's fine, then he can do whatever he wants. Is it clear? Let's read it again, inshallah, and if you have any word that is not clear, please make sure that it's become clear, inshallah. طيب, he says, والهبة مستحبة ويصح هبة مصحف وكل ما يصح بيعه وتنعقد بما يدل عليها عرفا وتلزم بقبض بإذن واهب ومن أبرأ غريمه من دينه برئ ولو لم يقبل ويجب تعديل في عطية وارث بأن يعطي كلا بقدر إرثه فإن فضل سوى برجوع وإن مات قبله ثبت تفضيله ويحرم على واهب أن يرجع في هبته بعد قبض وكره قبله إلا الأب وله أن يتملك بقبض مع قول أو نية من مال ولده غير سرية ما شاء ما لم يضره أو ليعطيه لولد آخر أو يكن بمرض موت أحدهما أو يكن كافرا والابن مسلما وليس لولد ولا لورثته مطالبة أبيه بدين ونحوه بل بنفقة واجبة ومن مرضه غير مخوف غير مخوف تصرفه كصحيح أو مخوف مخوف كبرسام وإسهال متدارك وما قال طبيبان مسلمان عدلان عند إشكاله إنه مخوف لا يلزم تبرعه لوارث بشيء ولا بما فوق الثلث لغيره ولا بما فوق الثلث لغيره إلا بإجازة الورثة ومن امتد مرضه بجذام ونحوه ولم يقطعه بفراش فكصحيح ويعتبر عند الموت كونه وارثا أو لا، ويبدأ بالأول فالأول بالعطية، ولا يصح الرجوع فيها، ويعتبر قبولها عند وجودها، ويثبت الملك فيها من حينها، والوصية بخلاف ذلك كله. Now, anything that is not clear? Yes, yes, the daughter, but if she has some, no. But if she got married, then it's her husband's. No. حديث إن شاء الله. في حديث 149, which is one of the very comprehensive hadith, even though it's 2 words only, but it's one of the principles of the deen. He says عن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا ضرر ولا ضرار، لا ضرر ولا ضرار. So the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام said لا ضرر ولا ضرار, and this is no harm and لا ضرر. الضرر is the harm, right? And no ضرار for a person to harm anyone. So this is all not permissible. So it's something that is pushed away, and a person should protect himself from any. This is even some of the rulings can be established as a result of this rule, which is لا ضرر ولا ضرار. It has so much implications to it in the Sharia, and it's لا ضرر ولا ضرار. Anything that is harmful becomes haram, and anything that a person would harm others with it, then also it's not permissible. So this is the qaida, this is a principle. It's one of the qawaid of the fiqh that is well established, and some of them said that this is half of the fiqh, is to push away the harm. So one of the which that we just talked about is, for a father to take the wealth of his son, for example, if it's going to harm the child or the son, even though the Prophet ﷺ said, أنت ومالك لأبيك, was the Shara came with these kulliyat. This is major general principles that not to be changed whatsoever. لا ضرر ولا ضرار. So, and that's why it's important, then it's not permissible to take. That's why it's important when people, refer to or haste to find a ruling about something, and they say that's the hadith and it's an evidence to it, but they have to recognize the major hadith that governs all of these other hadith, right? So that cannot be challenged, basically. So even though the subject of the matter that they're discussing might not be related to the other hadith, but the other hadith takes over because it's a general, it's a qaida, it's a principle. So it has to be not contradicting to any other matters, and it's to be explained in the light of it. So, and of course, لا تضار والدة بولدها, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran and other things. And this is again one of the principles of the deen. But who is the one that judges this? It has to be a person of knowledge. Not for a person to say there's harm is afflicting me, so then he commits haram. What is the level of the harm? And it's, yes, it's to be pushed away, but not to be committing haram is the worst harm that can happen to a person. So, and the darar, yuzal, as the Prophet ﷺ, is to be removed, and to be removed accordingly with what the harm is to be removed, not with any more than what it's supposed to be done. So again, whether it's in transactions, whether it's in rent, whether it's in, like one of the things that are very obvious in this, if someone has tattoos, for example, it's haram to have tattoos, but he repented to Allah. or he became a Muslim, then does he have to remove it? Then this is where the hadith, لا ضرر ولا ضرار. If it's going to be harmful, then don't remove it. So this is something to be applied. The same thing with circumcision sometimes. You know, if it's going to be harmful for a person grown up old, for example, and he became a Muslim and it's going to be harmful, then it's to avoid. So it depends on the situation. So why? Because of لا ضرر ولا ضرار. And if there's two harmful things and they both have to, one or the other has to happen, then to remove the lesser harm than the bigger harm. But the ones that deal with this are the major scholars and ones that have knowledge and they fear Allah. Not to be given to anyone, students of knowledge, and they start determining what is harmful, what's not harmful. So because of the time, we'll discuss inshallah later, inshallah. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وصحبه وسلم سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك